What up, everybody? Just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who's supported Lockdown Universe for the past 3 years. I really appreciate you. And if you've been thinking about a way to support, but you didn't have $1.99 to support for each month, that is okay. If you want to just buy me a coffee, there's an option for you to just buy me a coffee inside the description of each episode moving forward. So just highlight that, put it in your browser. You can go right there and buy me a coffee or two or three. I like coffee. Who doesn't? And I would really appreciate it. And it would keep me awake enough to make more podcasts for you guys. So I would appreciate that. And just wanted to let you know. Thanks for that. And thanks for supporting the podcast. Let's get to the show. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal lore. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourselves. So today, we got a really interesting one. We're going to talk about how Dr. Mack, the very famous hypnotic regression therapist who hypnotically regressed many abductees, was contacted by the U.S. government to hypnotically regress their military personnel. Now, this isn't really widely known. This bombshell was actually just dropped by Richard Doty, who worked for the Office of Air Force Office of Special Investigations Unit. And he talked about how the government became aware of Dr. Mack's hypnotic regression of the public, and how many alien abductees went to him to find out what was going on, or he would go to them. He even went to South Africa for the South African school children alien event where the aliens dropped down right in front of the school children. So anyway, the point of the story is that the government reached out to Dr. Mack. They asked him, hey, we don't want to know about the civilians, even though it seems like that would be the case, right? The government's like, hey, tell us about these civilians. We want to know about, their issues. But no, that wasn't the case. They actually only wanted him to come and do the exact same thing with their personnel, because they had so many people that were being abducted. They had to quantify this missing time. So that's exactly what they did. So he said, sure, I'll do it. I thought for sure he'd say no. He'd be like, hell no, I'm not working with the government. These guys are getting abducted by aliens and you guys aren't coming out with it. No, apparently Richard Doty stated that Mr. Mack, Dr. Mack, stated that he was an American, he was a veteran, and he was a proud American devoted to his country. He was willing to help people that needed help. Which makes sense because, doctors take that Hippocratic oath, so they got to help out. So he was bound by his duty, and he said, yeah, I'm going to go do it. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Now, that was interesting enough, right? I was really surprised to hear Mack actually went and worked for the government, but I guess all these high-profile people like Uri Geller, John Mack, and all these other folks, they end up working for the government at some point or another, or the government's going to reach out to them and want to recruit them. So the government wanted to know when John Mack interviewed these people, if there was a specific case that would come about that was really important, that stuck out to him, that was so interesting or had so much information or a threat that they had to know about, or that would threaten the clients or the, that's what we call them in the mental health field, the military members' ability to do their job. They needed to know about it. So this is where it gets really fascinating, because Doty states that Mack came to him and to others on the team that had a need to know. He stated that Mack came to them and he had this really sullen look over his face during one briefing. He stated that he had a hypnotic regression with one of these full colonels, not a lieutenant colonel, but a full colonel, full-birded colonel, they call him. And he stated that this colonel had missing time. He came to him and stated, I had missing time. I'm a little bit confused. I don't know what happened. My secretary also stated I was gone. I was in my office and then I was just gone for this period of time, and then they just found me laying in the corner like sleeping after like a few hours. So this is really interesting, right? Because the secretary would have been right outside the office. She would have known if he left. And she was working the entire time. He stated he didn't leave. He was like, I don't know what happened, but I need to find out. So they did this hypnotic regression. And this is where Mac gets really upset, because he talks about the fact that when he went in with this client, he thought it's just going to be an everyday standard hypnotic regression, just going to be some aliens that abducted him. Maybe not. Maybe something normal. Maybe he fell asleep. Who knows? So he goes into this hypnotic regression. He states that this individual was abducted by some malevolent ETs. These malevolent ETs told him that they were going to destroy the Earth. Okay? So right there you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking? Destroy the Earth? Who's talking like that? Well, Doty doesn't come out and say which species it is. He has classifications that are very, very specific. They're not like our typical, like, oh, it's a reptilian, oh, it's like a Nordic. His are like, very like scientific. But he stated that this particular case, John Mack stated this particular case scared the living daylights out of him. And it actually caused the colonel to commit unaliving himself, right? That's what we call it these days. So he says, the colonel told me through hypnosis that these beings were going to destroy the Earth. They didn't say why. That's the really interesting thing. But this is what they said. They said he actually had a recording of everything. He said he was taken by these hostile aliens and that they were going to shoot laser beams or beam-like weapons at the Earth. And these beam-like weapons were going to elicit volcanic eruptions across the Earth. They were also going to cause people to fly off of the Earth, and they showed him these visions causing massive destructions as they were hitting the Earth, causing earthquakes, the volcanic activity we talked about, and all the gravity of Earth would actually just be released from Earth. So people would just start flying off the planet. And this is from the Office of Special Investigations from the Air Force. And so they're like, wait a minute, what? And that's what the Office of Air Force Investigation Officer agents were talking about. They were saying, like, what the hell? Is this serious? And John Mack was like, yeah. And he's like, John Mack stated, I don't think this colonel has the ability to continue his job or command in the United States Air Force anymore. And so after the evaluation, he actually was retired and actually went into a mental health facility. He couldn't stand it. He went into different mental health facilities, got help, but a short time after he retired, he committed unaliving himself. And for people that aren't that familiar with what that is, just imagine somebody taking themselves out, okay? So this is a really interesting abduction case because of a few different reasons. One, we don't have a lot of abduction scenarios where people are threatened or shown the end of the Earth. Was this because this individual abductee just happened to be a military colonel? Now, colonels are high ranking. If they were going to show this to somebody, why wouldn't they just abduct, like, a general or somebody in the in the Joint Chiefs of Staff or somebody, and then show them this? Why would they go after a colonel, even though colonels are high ranking? Why did they pick him out? Why did they show him this? And then the really interesting thing is they hid it from him. They blocked it. They put a blinder over his memory, or a memory block. He had to go in and get hypnotically regressed for this. So the question is, are they targeting people's subconscious to make them change their conscious decisions that they make? For example, if they implanted this in his mind, would he then make certain decisions that would push their narrative, push their objective, right? So, like, would he make a military decision to
retreat from these people if they did start to attack, right? Did they implant this thought process that we can do this and we will do this? And would his thought process then be we need to retreat, not even knowing that this memory was in his mind, right? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that something to really think about? Because we may not know. We may not know what's going on, but it's in your mind already. It's in your subconscious. You won't even be able to know it's there or to understand your thought process. So this is how sadistic it can really be and how deep it can really be, you know. And what's really disheartening here in this particular story is that, you know, he probably could have functioned fine if he didn't go get hypnotically regressed. Once you go through the hypnotic regression, this memory becomes unlocked and you can now remember it in your conscious everyday living. So this is where it becomes challenging to live with this knowledge. That's why they almost block it. You know, one reason is to allow people just to live a normal life, but the second is to implant these thought processes so they might change your mind. This is really dangerous because in a few different reasons, right? This particular instance is dangerous for the fact that he was a colonel. And they could just abduct him right out of his freaking office, okay? A place where it's supposed to be militarily secure. They abducted him right out of his office, okay? They implanted this memory. These were hostile aliens. Not nice, we're going to cure your cancer aliens. These are hostile aliens. We're going to do this to you. The second issue with this is that could they have abducted him and implanted this thought process to elicit a fear-based energy so that they could reap it? Richard Doty didn't state which specific species this was. These species, whichever it was, could have been one of the species that feed off of a fear-elicited response. So they could have put this into his mind, elicited the loosh energy, which is a negative energy that they can feed on, and then they could have let him go. And they might be able to reap this fear energy for years to come. Or it could have been that he goes back to the military, makes these decisions. These decisions affect fear within the military community, and then they elicit more loosh energy, right? It's very interesting. It can go down a very deep rabbit hole, and it led to the death of one of the colonels of the United States Air Force. And that's just one person. What other questions arise out of this particular instance? Well, I think we covered some of them. We didn't cover all of them. What would happen if he didn't go in for regression? Why did they do this? Why haven't they attacked Earth already if that's the case? It seems as though they were just bluffing or threatening for some reason. John Mack was extremely disturbed by this particular event. He stated he has been all around the world, been in some dark areas, dark places. He was in the military himself. He went overseas. He's interviewed people from all around the world and gone all around the world to do it. He said this was one of the darkest abduction hypnotic regressions he's ever done. This individual had to retire immediately. This individual then unalived himself immediately after a retirement. Could you imagine an event so terrifying that you would unalive yourself almost immediately? We have 22 veterans a day that kill themselves. What happens when so many people start understanding that certain alien species are abducting us and they go in for hypnotic regression? They don't have to be veterans. There's plenty of civilians that are abducted every day. So what happens when hypnotic regression just becomes as common as going to the grocery store or getting mental health therapy? Mental health therapy is now becoming pretty popular. There seems to be a push towards getting it. Hypnotic regression is going to become part of that more and more. And more people are going to be aware of what happened to them. It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I hope you guys stay safe. And I hope this brings a little bit of light into the idea that some people have that aliens are just out there to help us. They're our space brothers, and they're out there to cure cancer and give you superpowers. While that may be the truth, with some species, they might be out there to help maybe one person or two people that they might abduct. But there's also species out there that are implanting these very negative, very scary, very terrifying ideas into people's heads, and it's not a good look. So maybe that's what Tom DeLonge was talking about when he said, he found out something that scared him so much he couldn't sleep for 3 nights. Maybe that's what scares the government so much they can't give us information. They don't want us to know, because then maybe we'll all go for hypnotic regression to see if we were abducted. And then really puts the world into a tailspin. A lot of interesting information here. I'm going to stop it here. There's so many questions we could ask, but I think this is just enough nugget to give you something to chew on for today. So thanks for joining. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you guys take care of yourselves physically, spiritually, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. There's a lot more information that Richard Doty talked about, so I am going to bring you those podcasts in the upcoming days. So stay tuned for those. They should be coming out tomorrow and the following days. Please go like, follow, share, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.